Iraq, Afghanistan, and Libya. We could save billions, mind you, billions of dollars by ending these wars. Madam Speaker, we should reject these cuts which hurt our most vulnerable populations and the residents of the District of Columbia. It's shameful, it's a moral disgrace, and I urge a no vote on it.
The gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from Kentucky.
May I inquire the time remaining on both sides?
The gentleman from Kentucky has 8, and the gentleman from Washington has 7.5 minutes remaining.
Madam Speaker, I yield 1.5 minutes to the chairman of the Legislative Branch Subcommittee on Appropriations, gentleman from Florida, Mr. Crenshaw.
Gentleman from Florida is recognized for 1.5 minutes.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. And, Madam Speaker, let me just remind my colleagues that when we vote yes on this resolution, we will be able to say that we have led by example. We were told that we should take the budget-cutting knife and look at every agency and make them do more with less to be more efficient. And we thought we should lead by example. And the best way to lead by example is to take that budget-cutting knife and turn it on ourselves. And that's exactly what we did. Over 1/2 of the cuts that were made to the Legislative Branch Subcommittee, which I chair, were made to this House itself. We cut the office account of every member of this House by 5%. We cut the budget of all the leadership offices by 5%. We cut the budget of all the committees by 5%, except the Appropriations Committee, which we cut by 9%. And so we have led by example. We have taken that budget-cutting knife and we've directed it ourselves. Now, some people will say we cut too much. Some people will say we didn't cut enough. But frankly, when this is all over, people are not going to remember the numbers. But what they will long remember is this is the day that we changed the direction of this country. This is the day we turned the ship of state in the right direction. They'll remember that this is the day that we stopped this culture of spending and we started a culture of savings. They'll remember that, the day that we stopped spending our future and we started saving our future. And there's a lot of work to be done. But let's clean up this mess, let's move ahead, and let's get ourselves on the path to permanent prosperity.
Time is expired.
I yield back my time.
Gentleman from Washington is recognized. Gentleman from Washington is recognized for 2.5 minutes.
Well, it's another week here in Congress, and we're voting on this appropriations bill, H.R. 1473. I am pleased that at the 11th hour last week, we were able to reach an agreement that made it possible for military wives around the country to be sure that they would get their paycheck. This had to be done. We kept our parks open. We supported our men and women in uniform around the world. And at the same time, I think we minimized the damage of H.R. 1 in this bill. The bill that is now before us contains current levels of Head Start enrollments, including the increased spots for newborns to 2-year-olds. It helps us protect the Pell Grant program. It is a good bill on defense. My good friend Bill Young has done an amazing job, and I appreciate so much Mr. Rogers taking our bill from last year and putting it into this bill. The Community Services Block Grant Program is restored. WIC is restored. Head Start is restored. Now, yes, there are some things I don't like. No high-speed rail money. Some other investment accounts. Literacy programs, some of them were taken away. Some of the cuts in Homeland Security were not the best. But, as with any compromise, some members will see a glass half full and some will see a glass half empty. Members will have to consider all the ramifications of this compromise and vote their conscience. We need to move on to the FY12 appropriations bill. The bottom line is this bill must pass today. Let's get it done so we can fight against the Ryan Republican budget. Thank you.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
I yield 1 minute to a new member of our committee, gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Dent.
The gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today in support of this legislation, H.R. 1473, the fiscal year 11 spending agreement. Clearly, this is not a perfect bill, but it is a good one, and we should not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. You know, just 6 months ago, cutting even $2 billion in federal spending seemed impossible. But today we're cutting non-defense spending by nearly $45 billion, or 7.7% from the fiscal year 10 level. You know, Madam Speaker, we have, in fact, turned the proverbial ship around, the aircraft carrier around, when it comes to federal spending. You know, we're no longer debating about how much we're going to increase spending. We're debating today, rather, how we're going to cut spending and how much we're going to cut in spending. That really represents an enormous shift in the culture of this place. You know, from the transportation accounts, we cut $2.9 billion from the high-speed rail initiative. From HUD, the bill will force public housing agencies to operate more efficiently, eliminate duplicative housing counseling efforts, and reins in spending for development programs with a history of inconsistent results. So we have a lot here to celebrate today. You know, in November, the American people voted for change.
Time has expired.
And the culture of that change is occurring. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you.
I want to reserve my time.
Gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Kentucky.
Madam Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to a new member of our committee, gentleman from Ohio, Mr. Austria.
The gentleman from Ohio is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'd like to thank Chairman Rogers for his hard work and his leadership to finally get us here, to finally get a package before us that should have been done last year that officially ends the stimulus spending binge, that funds our troops, that represents the largest non-defense cuts in actual spending in American history, with nearly $40 billion in real cuts. Certainly many of us would have liked to have seen more cuts included in this final package, but as the Speaker mentioned earlier, unfortunately Republicans only control half of 1/3 of the federal government. And until the Senate Democrats and the administration and the President decide to get serious about stopping the borrowing and cutting spending, we're never going to achieve the spending cuts that the American people have demanded. So what does this CR mean for us today? For starters, it means approximately $40 billion of less borrowing. This package sets the stage for trillions more in spending cuts that we will vote on later this week. It reduces our own budget here in Congress by $100 million. It defunds 4 of the administration's czars. It fulfills our commitments to our troops by fully funding our men and women serving our country, many in harm's way during 3 wars. This CR provides critical and necessary resources for veterans, health benefits, and resources to reduce the backlog, and it fully funds our commitment to Israel, one of our most important allies, while cutting nearly $78.5 billion from the President's 2011 budget. Madam Speaker, is this a perfect spending cut package? No. But it is a real $40 billion start towards the 2012 budget bill that will begin reducing trillions of spending and begin digging out our nation from unmanageable budget deficits and putting our nation on a path to prosperity once again. Madam Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time. Thank you.
Gentleman yields back.
Good job, Steve.
Thank you.
Who seeks time?
Madam Speaker, I yield a minute and a half to a new member of this body, gentleman from Louisiana.
Gentleman from Louisiana
Mr. Landry.
is recognized for a minute and a half.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm a Tea Partier. I was supported by the Tea Party. I have a Tea Party poster in my office. My constituents in Houma gave me a chainsaw to use to cut the government spending. I'm extremely pro-life. This CR will prohibit the use of federal funds for abortions in D.C., and if I have to save the unborn one city at a time, I will. This CR will finally allow an up or down vote on the defunding of Planned Parenthood and Obamacare in the Senate. The fact that the last Congress did not pass a budget has left us in a mess. And sometimes we need to wring the mop out a few times to clean up the mess. The bill we consider today cuts real money, money that would have surely been spent by the Democrats had we not taken control of this body. Do I think the cuts are big enough? No. But my mother used to warn me about being a pound penny wise and a pound foolish. We have another problem. If we don't pass the CR, our brave men and women in uniform will not be paid. I'm incensed that the President and the Democrats in the Senate held the funding for our troops hostage until they cut this deal. I served in the National Guard for 11 years. As a veteran, I understand the sacrifices our brave men and women and their families make to preserve our freedom. The Army Ranger Creed states, among other things, that they shall never fail their comrades, that they will never leave a fallen comrade, and they will not embarrass their country. Well, I will not fail them, I will not leave them, and I will not embarrass them and their families who are caught as political pawns in this game. We must not let this happen again. I urge my colleagues to support the concurrent resolution, get the ball rolling, hang in there, wring out the mop this time, and together we continue to make history and clean up all the mess.
The gentleman from Washington is recognized.
I yield 5 minutes to the distinguished Democratic whip, Mr. Hoyer from Maryland, who has been a real leader in our House.
Gentleman from
I thank the gentleman
Maryland
for
is
yielding.
recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This piece of legislation will provide for the funding of our government from now until September 30th of this year. While I do not want to engage in a debate looking at the past, but we are here because we did not fund the government in the last Congress through September 30th. And frankly, there's not much use in pointing fingers at one another as we've been doing. There was an omnibus that was on the floor at the urging of the leader in the Senate, and it was not able to get the 60 votes necessary because those of you on the minority side in the Senate did not give votes to do that. Notwithstanding that, the issue today is not what happened yesterday, but what's going to happen today. And we have a choice to make. We have a choice to make in a divided House, and a divided Congress, and divided government. The Speaker talked about divided government. And that choice is whether we will come together, work together, try to make the best possible agreement that we can make, and then move together. I think the American public expects us to do that. During the course of the debate some days ago, I referenced with the chairman of the Appropriations Committee, who comes from Kentucky, another famous Kentuckian, Henry Clay. Henry Clay came to this Congress and was elected Speaker on the first day of his service in this Congress. Interesting enough, he was Speaker during the 8th Congress, during the 10th Congress, and during the 13th Congress. He served for some 10 years as a Speaker. He served also in the United States Senate, and in fact was deemed to be one of the most outstanding members of the United States Senate. He is unique in history. And he said this, and I will repeat it. If you cannot compromise, you cannot govern. And what he meant by that, of course, was that the American people in 435 districts in 50 states, not 50 states, of course, when he was Speaker, go to the polls and they elect people to come to Washington to represent them. And not surprisingly, in a democracy, they have different points of view. They have different perspectives. They have different priorities. They come from different geographical locations. Their states have different interests. Their districts have different interests. And so it should not shock any of us that there is not agreement. In 100% of the cases, or sometimes 70%, or sometimes 60%, and perhaps not even in 50%. But there does come a time when the American public expect us to be able to act. Gridlock is not what they voted for. Madam Speaker, I will vote for this resolution. I do not vote for this resolution any more than anybody else on this House floor will vote for or against this resolution because they like everything that's in it or dislike everything that's in it. If I were writing this resolution, the priorities would be different. I heard my friend Rosa DeLauro, who's now the ranking Democrat on the Labor, Health, Human Services Subcommittee. Very frankly, if I were on a committee, I'm the second ranking member of the Appropriations Committee, I would be the ranking member of the Labor Health Committee, and I would share her views. I do share her views. I think the priorities that we have agreed to in this resolution are not my priorities. But we have reached agreement.
the President of the United States, elected by all the people, the Majority Leader of the United States Senate, and the Speaker of this House worked for literally weeks to try to come together to forge an agreement so that we could fund government for the balance of this year. It's not useful to blame anybody as to why we're so late on this, but it is useful to say that we are about to embark, after we pass this piece of legislation, a critical debate on the differences we do have in the priorities of this country. Very substantive, deeply held beliefs on the differences that exist between our two parties. And the budgets that will be offered after we pass this resolution on the budget for the 2012 year are going to be the substance of our debate. I would hope at this period of time, Madam Speaker, that we pass this resolution, keep our government functioning, and come together to debate the real priorities of this country in the next bill. And I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Kentucky.
May I inquire the time remaining, Madam Speaker?
The gentleman from Kentucky has 2.5 minutes, and the gentleman from Washington has 30 seconds.
I have one additional speaker, if the gentleman wants to yield time.
I didn't know we had either. I have 30 seconds. You want me to go? I just, again...
The gentleman from Kentucky has one more additional...
I think he has the right to close.
Yes, but he has an additional speaker.
And that speaker will close, so I have to finish now.
Gentleman is recognized.
I just want to say I want to thank the chairman, and I look forward to FY12 getting on to our appropriation bills and our commitment to the House that we're going to have open rules, we're going to have subcommittee markups, full committee markups, and give people a chance to be involved in the process as they've not been in the past. And I'd be glad to yield to the chairman.
And I join you in that commitment. That's what we're planning to do. I just want this bill over with.
I'm with you. Let's get it over. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I yield the balance of our time to the chairman of the Interior Subcommittee on Appropriations, gentleman from Idaho, Mr. Simpson.
Gentleman from Iowa is recognized for 2.5 minutes.
I thank the chairman for yielding, and let me thank you for all the hard work that you've done on this appropriation bill and bringing it to the floor. I know it's been a tough task. Mr. Speaker, the budget for fiscal year 2011 is now 6 months and 2 weeks overdue. It's time to finish this budget. Through this legislation, Chairman Rogers and the Appropriations Committee have achieved what some thought would be impossible. We have succeeded in cutting $40 billion. That's $40 billion from current spending levels. No other single bill in history has cut more spending. Think about that for just a minute. While the $40 billion reduction in spending, and it is $40 billion contrary to some of the reports that have been out there that it is 300 and some odd million or something like this, this is $40 billion in real reductions in spending. While this is $40 billion, it is just a step. But it is a step in the right direction. We should also think about how the nature of this national conversation on spending has changed. For several years, we debated in Congress how much we were going to increase spending each year. Our debate today centers not on whether we should cut spending, but how much spending should be cut. That is a sea change in the debate both in Congress and in the nation, and it's a change in the right direction. The Interior Subcommittee, which I'm privileged to chair, has cut spending by 8.1% or $2.62 billion below the FY010 enacted level. Virtually every agency within the budget has been cut. The CR cuts EPA funding by $1.6 billion or 16% below the FY10 enacted level. Funding levels for land acquisition programs are reduced by $149 million or 33%, and on and on. Even with these deep cuts, funding levels for operational accounts are sustained to prevent employee furloughs and the closure of national parks and forests, wildlife refuges, Smithsonian museums, and other sites. Let me just say for a minute about the energy and water appropriation. Although no funds were included in the energy and water appropriation to continue and proceed to build Yucca Mountain, I don't want anyone, and I'm speaking particularly to the NRC and the Department of Energy, to misinterpret this vote. Congress has voted and spoke many times on the issue of Yucca Mountain. Do not misinterpret this vote that this is a vote against Yucca Mountain. What we are saying is to the NRC is proceed with Yucca Mountain, and NRC, do your job, which they have failed to do. As I close my remarks, I want to echo what both Chairman Rogers and Ranking Member Dick said about the staff. Unless you've been on this committee or on any of the committees, the public generally doesn't know the hard work that goes on behind the scenes to make this all possible. And I want to thank the staff of both the Appropriations Committee and really the staff of the House, the staff that sits up here on the dais. They do a tremendous job for us, for which this Congress would not be able to operate as effectively as we do. Some people think that's not too effectively, but actually we wouldn't be able to do our job. And most people don't understand that when we went home last Friday after extending the government funding for a week, we went home. They were here all day Saturday until well into Sunday morning, and then all day Sunday till well into Monday morning in order to get the job done so that we could do this for the American people. So I want you to vote for this budget. I urge an aye vote so that we can get on with debating what the minority whip mentioned, the important priorities for the FY12 budget in the Ryan Republican budget. We appreciate that, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman's time has expired. All time has expired pursuant to House Rule 218. The previous question is ordered on the bill. The question is on engrossment and third reading the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the Chair, the ayes have it. Third reading.
A bill making appropriations for the Department of Defense and the other departments and agencies of the government for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2011, and for other purposes.
The question is on passage of the bill. Pursuant to Clause 10 of Rule 20, the yeas and nays are ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, this 15-minute vote on H.R. 1473 will be followed by a 5-minute vote on House Concurrent Resolution 43. This is a 15-minute vote.
And it is final passage on the 2011 spending bill for funding the federal government through the end of the fiscal year. John Bresnahan of Politico, writing about some of the negotiations behind the scene on getting votes to pass this, writes that fearing a failure of landmark budget deal that averted a government shutdown, House Republican leaders have sought help from Minority Whip Steny Hoyer and top Democrats on the Appropriations Committee to pass the measure. He writes that House Majority Whip Kevin McCarthy contacted Hoyer yesterday and asked for his help. That's according to Republican and Democratic sources and reported in Politico. This is final passage. They will vote on the adjournment resolution following this, and still to come on the House floor. If this passes, and it is expected to pass, members will consider two resolutions. One would block funds to implement the health care law passed last year. The other would stop federal funds for Planned Parenthood, and votes ahead on both of those resolutions. And still later today, initial debate, general debate, on spending for 2012, the Republican proposal for fiscal year 2012.
On this vote, the yeas are 260, the nays are 167. The bill is passed and without objection. The unfinished business is the vote on the adoption of the House Concurrent Resolution 43, on which the yeas and nays were ordered. The clerk will report the title of the concurrent resolution.
House Concurrent Resolution 43, concurrent resolution providing for an adjournment or recess of the two houses.
Question is on adoption of the current resolution. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 5-minute vote.
House is voting on the adjournment resolution. They have a 2-week recess ahead of them. They just passed the continuing resolution, fiscal year 2011 spending through the end of the fiscal year, September 30th. It passes by a vote of 260 to 167. Still ahead, though, members will consider 2 resolutions related to that passage. One would block funds to implement the health care law that was passed last year. The other would stop federal funds for Planned Parenthood. Debate and votes still to come, and also still ahead, initial debate, general debate on fiscal year 2012 spending. Well, with President Obama's plan announced yesterday, his debt and deficit reduction plan, and the debate on the House floor today on 2011 and 2012 spending, lots of debate, both chambers in the House and Senate. Some of it didn't even have any words associated. Here's from this morning's morning hour speeches.
What purpose the gentleman from New York rise? Without objection, so ordered. Has expired.
New York's Joseph Crowley, a Democrat, from this morning's morning hour speeches. On the House floor now, they are voting on the adjournment resolution, approving the 2-week recess that is ahead for both the House and the Senate. And still to come on the House floor, a couple of resolutions related to the passage of the 2011 spending bill. Those resolutions deal with blocking the funds, implementing the health care law, also stopping federal funds for Planned Parenthood. Debate on those resolutions and votes coming up in the House, as is debate on the fiscal year 2012. General debate will happen this afternoon into this evening. The 2011 continuing resolution just passed the House floor. The vote was 260 to 167, with 59 Republicans voting against the resolution, 81 Democrats voting yes.
On this vote, the yeas are 243, the nays are 178. The concurrent resolution is agreed to, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. House will be in order. House will be in order. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
There we go. Mr. Speaker, I announced that I was detained. I got here right at the close of the vote. I missed voting no because I believe the vote did not live up to our promise. Wanted that in the record. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Without objection, the gentleman's statement will appear in the record. For what purpose does the gentleman from Louisiana seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to House Resolution 218, I call up House Concurrent Resolution 35, directing the Clerk of the House of Representatives to make a correction in the enrollment of H.R. 1473 and ask for its immediate consideration.
House will be in order. The clerk will report the title of the resolution.
House Concurrent Resolution 35, concurrent resolution directing the Clerk of the House of Representatives to make a correction in the enrollment of H.R. 1473.
Pursuant to House Resolution 218, the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Alexander, and the gentlelady from Connecticut, Ms. DeLauro, will each control 10 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Louisiana.
Mr. Speaker,
the gentleman will suspend. Gentleman may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material in H.C. Resolution 35.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself 3 minutes.
Gentleman is recognized for 3 minutes. Gentleman will suspend. House will be in order. The gentleman may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, House Concurrent Resolution 35, if adopted, will add provisions to the continuing resolution, H.R. 1437, to prohibit any funds in this Act or any previous Act from being used to implement the Patient Protection and Affordable Act. Most importantly, the resolution will guarantee that our colleagues in the Senate will take an up or down vote on this important issue. I think we can agree this is a vote that the American public has called for and a vote that we owe the American public. Mr. Chairman, today the House approved a historic spending agreement that cuts nearly $40 billion in federal spending. When signed into law, Congress will have achieved the first step in addressing our nation's ballooning deficit. Our economy still suffers from apathetic growth and millions of individuals remain unemployed. At a time like today when the federal government is running record deficits, coupled with significant unsustainable liabilities like Medicare and Medicaid, we simply cannot afford this $2.6 trillion entitlement program. It only seems fair that a vote on the billions of dollars in both mandatory and discretionary money required to implement the health reform law is part of the discussion. I, along with my colleagues in the House, have long argued for a repeal in this law. Several members have also maintained that for this strategy to be successful, it must include efforts to defund the enforcement and implementation of the law through the appropriations process. With the inclusion of this language in the CR, we will move one step closer to reaching that goal. Under new leadership, the House has already begun to tackle the health care law from previous fronts. In January this year, the Chamber approved a full repeal of the health care law. Additionally, during the historic open debate on a previous continuing resolution, H.R. 1, this Chamber debated and approved various provisions that would prohibit or slow the implementation of the health care law by restricting annual appropriations from going toward implementation. In fact, just yesterday, we passed a measure that would repeal just one section of the health care law that included $17.5 billion in mandatory automatic appropriations. This resolution will go farther by eliminating all the funding, both mandatory and discretionary, which is clear that we presently cannot afford. It will also allow time for us to offer up new solutions to our nation's health care challenges that will not have long-term negative consequences for job creation and economic growth. Putting all arguments on the merits of the health care law aside, this resolution simply ensures accountability is restored over how hard-earned taxpayer dollars are being spent. The health care law turned hundreds of billions of dollars in discretionary spending into mandatory spending. I yield the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves the balance of his time.
Reserve. Yes, reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves the balance of his time. The gentlelady from Connecticut.
Thank you. I yield myself 2 minutes.
Gentlelady is recognized for 2 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, instead of working to create jobs, reduce the deficit, and do the business of the American people, this majority has been consumed for months now with trying to repeal health care reform. Like the attempted repeal we saw the first week of this Congress, like the Tea Party budget passed in February, and like the many attempts we have seen to decimate health care reform piece by piece since, this concurrent resolution once again tries to take away the consumer protections of the Affordable Care Act and put insurance companies back in charge. It is a further demonstration of the majority's special interest priorities and their hypocrisy on job creation and deficit reduction. Passing this resolution will destroy jobs in the health professions. It will slow job growth by 250,000 to 400,000 jobs a year. It will increase medical spending and add nearly $2,000 to the average family insurance premium. And according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, it will add $230 billion to the deficit within 10 years and $1 trillion more within 20. Let me repeat that. This amendment adds billions and ultimately trillions of dollars to the deficit, starting with $5.5 billion this year. This is not what we promised the American people. They want us to cut the deficit, to get rid of special interest waste like oil company subsidies and breaks for corporate lobbyists. Instead, the majority wants to let insurance companies discriminate against people with pre-existing conditions, even children with pre-existing conditions, once again. They want to see women denied coverage because they survived breast cancer, were a victim of domestic violence, or had a C-section. They want to see 4 million small businesses lose $40 billion in tax credits, and seniors' health care and drug costs continue to rise at staggering rates. We're here to serve the needs of the American people, not the whims of the health insurance companies. This resolution will cost money and cost lives, and I urge my colleagues to vote against it. I'd be happy to yield to the chairman.
The time of the gentlelady's expired.